Just alrighty. Alrighty. Good evening, Grace.
Good evening. Hi, Noeli.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank
I
you.
am good.
Very
Alrighty. Thank you. On behalf of me and all the people who will be able to catch this recording on the different platforms, thank you for agreeing to be our guest mentor of the week.
awesome. It's my pleasure to be here. The opportunity is great, and thank you for welcoming me to your platform. I'm excited and I'm looking forward to what the evening has in store. So, yeah, let's see what we can learn tonight.
Alrighty. Thank you. Thank you so much. And congratulations on receiving your top 40 under 40 women in Kenya 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Like I was saying, I think I'm still pinching myself that it happened. But yes, I am very happy and very pleased, and looking forward to definitely make the most out of it. What I do with it, I think, is what will even be better for me, in
Mhm.
maximizing what that award meant for myself and my career.
All right. I think you being here speaks a lot to why you are a very, very deserving winner of Top 40 Under 40 this year. Thank you. Yeah, for making the time. I don't know if you're in Kenya, but it's 6 p.m. here, so we're very late in the evening. Thank you for making the time.
Oh yes, my pleasure. Yes, it's 7 p.m. where I am. Not too late, not too far from where you are.
Mhm.
It's an hour. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time. So we'll just go straight into it. I'll introduce us and introduce the topic for today.
Mm-hmm.
So my name is Noeline. I am our strategic supply chain leader and a growth mentor. I am also the host of Safe Space, which is a mentorship platform here on LinkedIn, but also goes live on YouTube and on Facebook. So our audience is able to catch this anywhere. It's a judgment-free zone. It is a learning platform where we get to connect with different subject matter experts every week to speak to us on different topics. And you are our guest mentor this week. And you will be speaking on building high performing teams. And I want to introduce you, Chris. I want to read your bio. So I'm going to just jump right into it and start by reading your bio to the audience. Alrighty, Grace Royman. With over 15 years of experience in the consumer goods industry, Grace Romien is a seasoned finance professional and business partner who leads with strategic vision and analytical rigor. Grace Royman has served multiple roles within the finance function, the most current being the Regional Finance Director for Sub-Saharan Africa, managing a multi-million dollar revenue portfolio across more than 20 countries in 4 key sub-regions, that being South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, and rest of West, South, and Central Africa. And she also leads 8 categories, leading a sizable team of analysts. Previous roles she has held in finance leadership in the company have spanned across the wider EMEA region, that's Europe, Middle East, and Africa, so such as the French colonies, select European Union countries, AP and Gulf region, with deep business understanding and delivery across all multiple aspects of finance. Grace Royman's core competencies include cash flow management, new market entry, business planning and analysis, cost optimization, and legal entity and project management. Grace Royman has successfully delivered high single digit growth, record profitability, and significant savings for the company and its customers, despite facing challenges such as devaluation, hyperinflation, and the COVID 19 pandemic. Grace Royman is also a 2024 Top 40 Under 40 Women awardee for her contribution in the business sector and achievements in both the corporate world and community, as published by Business Daily Africa. Grace Royman is also a certified public accountant, chartered global management accountant, and an executive MBA 2024 graduate at London Business School, where she has sharpened her skills and knowledge in management, leadership, and innovation. Grace's mission is to drive growth and value creation for the company and the region while mentoring and coaching the next generation of finance leaders. Grace Royman is particularly passionate about mentoring young women in their life and career journey and will navigate the corporate world or otherwise. Ladies and gentlemen, Grace Royman. Over to you, Grace.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Noelin, for that introduction and very generous, kind words. Sometimes when it's read out, it becomes a bit surreal. But yes, I had had the pleasure and I've also had the blessing of having a very good career so far 15 years, and I'm very glad for this opportunity today to share a little bit of what I have lived through and a little bit of what I have learned. I have had the pleasure of uh, going back to school, like you've seen, in the last, let's call it 2 years. So I've also taken myself back to learning afresh. The last time I was in school was more than 10, 15 years, right? But going back to school as well just gives you this very refreshed knowledge of what is happening and why it's happening and what it means. So I have a little bit of textbook in my discussion today, but I also have a little bit of application of what strategy means, because strategy is a very it's one of those things that just mean everything and anything. So let's just jump into it, and we will walk through and see what do we have in store for today and how do we want to do it. What I have chosen to do is to sort of make it a very simple approach of strategy, a very simple understanding of it as well. And some of the tools that we're going to do and maybe review are also simplified such that it's very applicable to our day to day. And we will learn that all of us, one way or another, have been involved in what this big word is called strategy, whether in our personal lives, whether in our careers, whether in social circles, everywhere. It's if you are intentional about something, you're probably being strategic about it and you're probably having a plan. So yeah, let's get right into it. So we'll cover principles, we'll cover some frameworks, and we'll cover matters on how to adapt it into our businesses, especially for success. Okay. So what strategy? I think the big word from the dictionary itself, to be broken down, just means it's a plan. It's a plan that tells you or that sort of informs your actions. So it's something that you put down. There is nothing fancy about it. You can put it in many formats. You can put it in bullet points. You can put it in a chart and say, when I start here, I will move here next and I'll move there next. But it is just a thought out plan that you put down that helps you to solve what it is that you have in mind. So it gives you solutions for the problems that you may be having. So of course, when it is about strategy, even if it's about how do I go about getting a job, that is something that you want to achieve. Then what's my strategy? If I have a diploma, maybe one of the strategies of the jobs I want is to bridge that through getting a degree. Maybe another one is to bridge that through networking. So you just put down your plan of action and you say, my goal is to get a job. How do I solve for that problem, which given what tools I have today? So you draw a path from where you are to where you want to get so that you can be able to come up with your desired outcome. So it's like I said, it can be applied anywhere and everywhere. And I think the thing about the misuse or abuse of strategy is that even in our companies, a lot of times, the smartest people get in a room and go like, "We are all smart. We all know what we are doing. So let's just rely on what we all know together and put it, and it will form something absolutely good." I think that is usually bound to fail. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of ups and downs. It takes a lot of, it costs you, other than time, money, depending on what it is. So I think strategy is so important to just take the time and step back, plan, and execute. And when you fail, because it doesn't always mean that you will always succeed, you know why you failed, because something deviated from your plan or something disapproved the course of action that you have put. Yeah. And it helps you to figure out, if you are a business, it helps you to figure out what your path is to your long-term objectives. So you're able to know that I have a path to meeting that long-term objective, and I know if something happens midway, I can be able to detect easily why I didn't get there. So that's why it's so important to plan. Like, let's just call this a plan. It's so important to plan. It's so important to have a roadmap to be able to achieve your goals. Yeah. So, looking at the principles of how to be a strategic thinker, how to always, I call it starting with the end in mind, and walking through that course of action, like we called it. Um, and taking the time, right? So some of the things that we need to pay attention to at the beginning of this process is understanding that the organization is connected. It is one wire that connects to another, that connects to the other, and there is no working in isolation if you're working in an organization. Even if it is a personal journey that we're talking about, we're trying to form a strategy of, I want to get married, for example. One thing connects to the other. Where am I going to find that person? Well, what are my social circles? Maybe it's friends, maybe it's family. Like, there is one thing that's connected to the other, and it's very important to understand that we cannot work from an isolated point of view, and it's important to connect those dots. In an organization as well, it's important to put things together. Analyze your situation, which is the thinking in time, with what has happened in the past and what do we think will be the impact of that into the future. So you're making a plan on how to, I want to be able to, like we talked about, I want to be able to go back to school. Or I want to be able, to get a job, for example. What do I do? What have I done so far? How does it, or how has it influenced where I am? Maybe I want to change careers. What qualifications do I have? How do they either complement or are completely different from what it is that I want to do and where I want my new career to take me to? So, what is your current situation? What has been the past? What's actually even informing your decision today to say I want to change a career? And then what are the consequences? Changing a career means, if you were very senior, and even if you have 5 years, does that mean you are okay and need to start from zero depending on the career you want? Or can you start somewhere midway and take advantage of what you have? So that will be part of the principles of strategic thinking. And then hypothesis. This is something that we all hear, learn, talk about in a lot of cases, and we are not very good at it. Like, even some of us have to stop ourselves and say, hypothesis. Create a hypothesis. What's your hypothesis? What is your statement of what you're trying to figure out? Test it, iterate it, take it forward, bring it back, and see how that plays out. So, creating a hypothesis, and some of us, a lot of us did this sometime in high school, a little bit depending on the degree you did in university. But in the corporate world, I found it less and less applied unless the company is extremely intentional. And I find that most data-driven companies are very good at this, because this is all about data. But other companies where we are working business and we've always done this and it's always been this way, this is a very rare thing to have, but it is one thing that can be very effective. So, moving to frameworks from the principles, now knowing how we need to think, knowing where we need to put ourselves, there are tools that are out there, a lot of tools actually. A lot of them even go beyond what I've put here today. But not to bombard us with too much, I think this summarizes in some cases very simply, and to an extent very very complex. Some of them give you very good structure, SWOT analysis, and we'll go through them in a very high level, looking at your strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is a structure, this is a framework. So it forces you to think that way, and it forces you to sort of come up with what would it be for my business or my situation that I'm analyzing. If I want to go to a new market, what do I need to look at? How do I need to look at my business? So let's just go through this one by one, and we'll break it down to what is SWOT, what is the pest analysis, and what are the rest of the frameworks. So we'll start with SWOT. Pardon the line there that has just crossed the example, but I will read it out to us. So what is SWOT? Like I said, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are you good at? Where are you not good? Where do you see the opportunity? Let's say that we're walking into a new market. We want to analyze our business. Do we have the opportunity to be able to do business in country X, or even an adjacent type of business? Today, I am selling, I'll take the industry that I'm very familiar with. I'm selling powder soap. Tomorrow, maybe I am producing or I am introducing liquids, and I'm saying, okay, the consumer has actually the ability, or I'm going to drive the consumer. Is there an opportunity for the consumer to move from powders to liquids? Where would they move? What's the strength of that strategy? What is the weakness of it? And then what opportunities do I see, and where do I see threats from competition or anywhere else? So if you're a retail company, for example, if this is one of the things that I'm looking at, my strength may lie in my customer service. It may lie in how my market and my distribution is already. If I'm already having certain customers, if I'm already having a certain name in the market, that could be the thing that could allow me to launch another product, and it will be taken in much easier than if I was a completely new entrant in the market. Then what could be the weakness of some of the plans that I'm putting together? Let's say this is a business that is a brick and mortar. So we are doing things in store, and we do not even yet have an e-commerce business. Do I have an online presence? Is this the market where most people actually who are purchasing this product would be attuned to go, that they would shop online versus shopping, going to a store? Is this a country where e-commerce is completely developed and hardly anyone walks into a store, or the population that walks into a store is serving a very different line of product than the one you're doing? What opportunities do you see that are there as you expand into the new markets, as you expand into a new variant? And what threats do you see, for example, from competition or from your external factors that would be? Another thing out of SWOT. So when you put, it usually is like a table, and you put the framework and you look at these things, and it's just not enough to say, this is where my strength lies, or this is where my weakness. It's to now see what's your rebuttal. So if competition looks like this, if I have a threat from this competition, then what? And we will run through an example on SWOT to see how to think about SWOT in a real life example, as well as pests. So on the pest analysis, we have political, economic, social, and technological factors. This is a much bigger, it's a macro kind of approach. And you will find that if you're doing a business that has a big scale, is on a national scale, on a national level, if you're trying to launch something that's going to be big, national or international, you need to think of that business in this way. Or if you're already in that business, then what's happening within the context of your business today from a political angle? If we're in Kenya, for example, what's happening in the political scene? If you're a business that's doing import-export, how is the currency behaving? How is politics influencing the currency? How is, sometimes currency in certain countries just move together with the economics of it. Demand supply of currency will be equal to what you see in the market. In some situation, when the government sneezes, the currency goes up. When the government is having a cold, you will see it outrightly. Of course, for most you will, but in certain places like in the UAE, the currency is fixed. It is pegged to the dollar. It never sneezes, it never moves. You wake up one day, it is still the same currency, it's still the same conversion to the dollar. So that's not something for you that you will look at and you look and say, oh, this is a business, it's a big business factor. For as long as the UAE will continue to hold and do business as it is, then the currency will be pegged. So that becomes a much lower let's call it consideration than if you are in Kenya and the kind of business that you are doing, if it's import export, which demands that you have international or different currencies. So if we're looking at the best analysis, if you're a tech company, for example, and tech is the thing that's booming today, and it's a thing that's looking at all angles and all elements of, depending on what it is that you're launching. AI just went live, what are the regulations in certain places? If you're TikTok, America is just about, or is very close at the door to ban it, just because of, they think as a government that TikTok is not good for its people, for its population, for its children, for XYZ reasons. Yeah. If you are, for example, a phone company and you're really rallying, you could be Apple and you're really rallying for the use, because the more, the lower the age of those who are using the phone, the more phones you have in the market. Countries like Australia are about to ban phones for people younger than 16. So in some countries, we have children who have phones 10, 9, 8 years. So if you're coming into that political scene, into that government sector, into that government setup, sorry, what's the government mandating? And can your business be able to survive or withhold that? What is the economic status of that country, or where you are? If you're looking at growth, what are the economies that are playing there? How is inflation? How are the people able to approach the goods that you're giving? If you are giving necessities, maybe they'll be accepted much better. If you're giving premium products, can your consumers, can the people who are about to give this product afford them? If you are giving actually luxury goods, shoes, compared to people trying to fend for themselves bread, looking at the bare minimums, how is the economy of that country faring, and how does therefore your business and the strategy that you're going to come up fare up? What are the societal changes that are happening? Like now, one of the things I mentioned is, phones, adaptation, children, different things, TikTok. What society looking? How is society adapting or not in your business idea, or in your current business that you want maybe to expand, or you want to even grow? Because we were all about, if it's business, it's all about growth, expansion, it's all about becoming big and better. Yeah. And what are the technological factors that are happening, and the emerging trends that are related to the tool you're bringing? If you're bringing certain elements of technology that are completely outdated, you are a BlackBerry in the world of iPhone, then how do you play out? Do you really have a winning chance? Then it's important to look at what are the trends that have happened and what it is that your business is bringing in. Then on the elements of a balanced scorecard, it's just an alignment across. This is the word that I've had being used a lot of times in organizations, thanks to the consultancy firms. So it's an alignment across different teams in the organization. Like we say, the organization is a system and it's all interconnected. And it helps us to align our activities and to monitor performances. You have a scorecard, you're measuring it on a scale. You say the scale looks like this because of 1, 2, 3, and certain elements have been put down. To come up with a scorecard is a very rigorous thing. But once you have it, using it becomes very easy and applicable. It's a very good tool to have. And a lot of consultancy companies help companies come up with scorecards. So if you're a healthcare company, you may be able to use this to set up key performance indicators across the different elements of what it is or who it is that you're serving in your organization. Yeah, you're looking at your staff. First, you're looking at yourself, you're a business. Then you're looking at your patients, the customers, and you're looking at how do you run the process. Because in a hospital, for example, in healthcare, that process is so crucial. It is the difference between life and death in some cases. How do you handle situations like that? And also how do you learn and how do you come out of it? So scorecards are very keen, especially in industries where things are very critical, and healthcare is a very good example for that. Yeah. So moving on, we have as well Potter's 5 forces. I think this one, a lot of us, depending on where we went to school, it was a very loud framework that we came across in our education. And Potter is, sometimes called the father of strategy. And he came up with these 5 forces sort of setup for competitive analysis. So he helps, or this model really helps for an organization to look at, or a business to look at, the competitive intensity and the profitability of a business. For example, if like I put here, if you're a manufacturer of smartphones, um, what do your suppliers bring? What are the substitutes in the market? What is the rivalry happening amongst your competitors? And once you understand that, for example, one of the examples that I have is Zoom. Looking at Zoom at the time that Zoom came to life, there was a before and after, and the big before and after was COVID. And looking at before and looking at the interconnectedness of the world before, and looking at it how it changed and was, pushed into another angle that we would never have foreseen, would never have imagined, right? It would have been an interesting look if you are a company and looking at where was I on the five forces? What were my threats? Who was my rival? What did suppliers or what power did they have? Sometimes suppliers have so much power depending on the kind of product that you have. We've seen like the chips going out of stock. So if you have minimum number of chip suppliers in the world and they're the only ones who are able to give this, then it means everything else goes slow, pending and waiting for those suppliers to come through. So what power do your suppliers have? Do you have an option or do you not have an option, right? So it helps you to analyze and it helps you to form a strategic plan on, okay, if this happens, then my plan B is this, or I completely have no option. Then what do I do during that slowdown? Or what else do I innovate in the meantime so that I have something 3-5 years down the line so that I cannot be so powerless in that way. And the last but not least is scenario planning. This is just layman for anticipate the future. When you're leaving your house, you're going to town, and you say, I'm going to the city and I'm taking a car. What do you anticipate? You anticipate what time will that car come if I'm taking public transport? I anticipate that there will be, okay, it's 1 p.m. They take time to come because, they're far and in between, and some of them are taking a rest. Okay, it's evening, it's rush hour. What are the chances that I'll get one that has space when I'm picking it at this spot versus that spot? I'm just trying to anticipate the future. What are the chances that, yes, I will get the car, but I will be in traffic for X hours in the evening versus the afternoon where there is less traffic and less cars on the road? So you're just trying to scenario play. You're trying to create a situation where if I do this plus this based on this time, based on these occurrences and experiences, I think this is where I will go. And it therefore forms your response. Then it means if it's a 5 o'clock appointment, then I need to give myself 1.5 hours. If it's a 1 p.m. appointment, 1 hour, 45 minutes or stroke 45 minutes will be enough. So it can even half your time depending on the time that you're leaving or the time that your appointment is. So if you're an energy company in this situation where I've called out, you could have scenarios like what are the oil prices? They fluctuate. What is causing the oil prices to fluctuate? You have to think about what's happening around the world. Who are the guys who dictate where the oil prices are? If you're a big business, right? What are the regulatory changes that are happening around you? As far as energy is concerned, we're moving to sustainable. There are a lot of penalties depending on the country that can be offered on the type of energy that you are creating because, of course, of climate change. So what's happening around you? What are the advancements that are happening on renewable energy? And are you on that wagon already? And what kind of business approach are you bringing? Are you still bringing a conversation on coal when people are thinking, they've gone all the way nuclear, or have even gone nuclear and come back, and refuted and said, nuclear is not something that we're willing to look into. So it's important to scenario play and look around where you will anticipate and will give you an opportunity to anticipate the future business trends. Yeah. So that said, I think we can move to how do we get there? Now we have frameworks, we have tools, we have some principles that we want to adhere to as we are creating a strategy. How do we get there? How do we develop ourselves a mindset that is always tells us stop, think, don't jump in yet, and as is always the let's call it natural inclination for some of us if this is not in our DNA, right? It's a default. So be curious and look around. Keep reading, keep exposing yourself, keep talking, keep networking with people. If you're working for an industry, I think for someone like myself, where I've worked for a very long time in the same industry, and sometimes it gets very comfortable because the people around you have a lot of experience and have done this for a long time. you forget to look outside, and you forget to be curious, and you forget to benchmark yourself, and that's part of the reason. For example, I took myself back to school to remind myself where to look, how to look, and how to read the market again, how to read the things that I see. Sometimes you can read news and it can all just blur you. You don't understand what's happening, and the economies of things. Is a Kamala administration better than a Trump administration? What do we know other than the sensational discussions that are happening? Beyond it, from a business point of view, what do we know about it? How will it affect our business? How will it change the game as it is, depending on the industry that we're in? Then, of course, scenario analysis and reflect on that. If you're working and you are in that set, and most companies have this moment before the year begins, to think of what's our strategy for next year. Where are we going, and why do we want to go there? How does that play with what we have already done in the past, and how is that reasonable or not? So this is a good time to sort of look at the past, reflect, look at the industry, and engage yourself in things that go beyond what it is that is your niche. What are other people doing? What are the other functions in your organization doing? What are the other projects that exist that are happening? If you're in the energy sector, like we said, if you're working for an energy company, what's happening? What's a trend? Maybe you're not in the trend that's just looking at the future of energy, or where, if you are in digital, if you are in the world of knowledge, AI is happening. Maybe that's not your place today where you are working, but it is important to keep yourself informed and to look at what's happening in those, and therefore see how you can augment what is happening in different sectors with what you are doing. And then mapping, visualization, I think this is one of the best things, and you'll see a lot of organizations putting up boards in the company and giving an opportunity for people to sort of sync that in with visuals. The more what it is, the less we remember, and the less we apply it, and the less we are able to execute it. But when you complement it with visuals, and you map it as well, and sometimes when you map it, you're able to see it before it comes, and you're able to see the loopholes as well, and you're able to actually step back and say, oh, that doesn't make sense. If this and this happens, there's no way that this will be the third step, because it doesn't add up. So it does help how your mind evolves as far as strategy is concerned. Yeah. And very attuned to that is the ability to get ourselves from reactive, I'm that person who, I work on the now, I work on what just happened, tactical kind of thinking. They use this word tactical in the army a lot. You are on ground, the situation that happens will probably never occur in the same form. What you are trained is around the strategy of how to handle. Yeah. But if you are on that warfield, then you need to be tactical about the situation that has presented itself. How do I move from being tactical to just, that reaction, that emphasis on short term, that emphasis of now, this moment, I need to win the battle right now that's happening, immediate action, to something that's more strategic, more long term. And why do I actually need to do that? Because I think one of the things about tactical mindset, it helps you solve the now, and sometimes it works on the emergencies, but it's not sustainable. It's not something that an organization can be able to, even for your personal life. If I am trying, let's go back to my example of going, finding a job. If you really want a sustainable job, if you just say any job is anything, getting in an office and sitting on a desk is your end, then it will last you a very short time. You will get there and you realize, for some reason, it is not my fit. For some reason, the organization doesn't work for me. The job is not impactful. It doesn't, there are many things you could find. You could be lucky and find that, yes, this actually worked out. But from a strategy point of view, there's a lot of gambling, and the chances could work against you. I think I saw a question, Noelin. I'm not quite sure. It just came in and went out. If you could read to me the question and we can tackle it as we continue, that would be good. Otherwise, I can just keep on.
Apologies. Yes, please. Just go on. Apologies. It's on my side.
Okay.
Please go on.
All right. No problem. So the situation of shifting from tactical to a strategic mindset, focus on long term other than today. Short term is great, and short term solves the now. And for a lot of our companies that are also now looking at businesses in quotas, we've moved from that kind of analyzing the business and saying, I've given you an annual target, go see you after 12 months. It's not happening anymore in companies. But what is important to learn is that still the company sets an annual plan and then breaks down into measurable quarterly achievements. So it is 12 months is too long to be able to do something and just say, month one, it didn't happen. Let's look at month two, then let's look at month six. And that's what would happen. You'd find yourself at month seven and fast to six, nothing has happened that is concrete. And for that, you had a lot of pressure to finish off in the last five, let's call it months, which is impossible. Breaking it down in quarters, execution, great. Break it down into small chunks. Plan how that will be on a 12-month at least. So look at long term. Look at, if you're a company, what is your 3 to 5 year? What's your plan? If you're launching a new company, if you are setting up a new business idea, that could take longer than 12 months. So you need to say, strategy for me is this. Big story, big picture for me is this. And therefore, this is how I'm going to get there. Then break it down. You must break it down in chunks. So we're not dismissing that working in short term is not great, but we're just saying we need to fast plan, we need to think long term, so that now we can actually be best advised on how to break it down to short term. Use data, use insights to identify, and this is something that we already called out. And depending on which level you are, especially if you're an executive and you are on a much higher level, they are tasks that are much more operational, and they are tasks that need you to sit, step back, think. So take out what is operational, what is day to day, to give you space and room to actually put and map down a strategic plan. If you have that ability or you have the capacity in your organization, then of course, create it. Let me say, prioritize it, because strategy is something that sometimes is unseen, and a lot of times, actually, it's unseen unless we have that map that we've put up somewhere, pinned down, and say this is a strategy. It takes so much time and so much energy for us to come up with just that board. And sometimes it feels like this was too much for too little. But it actually pays out to come up with a great strategy, because that's what keeps you going when the thing, when the rubber hits the road. That strategy will keep you going. And even sometimes not rubber hits the road. When you're on a high and you have, let's call it a surprise trajectory of your business, COVID happens and you're Zoom. Then what if you don't have a strategy? You need to quickly change that strategy, but you need to have one. How are we going to play this COVID thing now? Everyone needs to connect. No one is seeing each other anymore. The value of this is, or the value of my product or my company right now is to create that ability for people to connect. Then how do I segue versus how I used to think? What am I going to do differently? So you need to go back, brainstorm, work it out, structure it, and then put it there and start executing. So have a plan, give it time, and give it priority in your organization. And that will allow you to slowly get from that mindset of today, now. Let's just get in, let's plan for today, and then tomorrow will figure itself out. You will be very shocked, and tomorrow will blindside you if that is the execution. So from that element of shifting from tactical and strategic mindsets, we want to look at how to now translate the goals that we've put into something actionable. So you have a great thing, all good brains have come together. How do we break it down? And a lot of these are things that we've had, but we just need reminders over and over. Use or come up with SMART goals. Let them be very specific, not fluffy. We can measure them. Why are we doing this? We want to grow. We want to double our business in the next 3 to 5 years. We want to serve this type of consumers between this age and that age and catch 30% of that market share. Be able to measure them. Be able to come up with some statistics, some numbers, so that you can know where you're going and you can know it's how sustainable is your business model. It could even come to your knowledge that you need to tweak a few things to make your model more sustainable than what it is today. Is it achievable? Don't set goals that are so dreamy that you cannot be able to reach or touch. How relevant is it to the market today? I think I saw Elon Musk in one of the investor meetings that he was having, he brought out this robots. The movies we've watched where we've seen robots being in our house. If you have that person who is tending to you, cleaning your house, cooking for you. Now he's saying the new age is robots, and he's saying that his company is closer there than far. Now imagine this was 20 years ago, and someone was just telling you all these things. Of course, you think, oh my goodness, where are we 30 years ago? This is so dreamy, this can never happen. You're watching a movie and thinking this will never come to life. Today, is it relevant? Given where things are going and given what technology is, given how we have all these tools and inventions and self-driven cars, it is very relevant today. So it's all a factor of where are you. Sometimes you can be willing to bet on yourself 30 years ago, but then it becomes a very hard bargain. But then there's also always that person who is going to break through and introduce this innovation that's never been heard of, like the iPhone. Time bound, everything needs to be within a certain time. Not too long, not too short, depending on what it is that you're trying to achieve. So, but time is very important because time allows you to measure and time allows you not to go on and on and on and on. It could, amount to losses eventually, actually, if you stretch the time too long, thinking that you're still going to be able to achieve your goals. Break them down into very specific action items and track them. Put them down and track them. If you don't, you can't, you cannot be able to measure what you don't track. If you're not putting it down, then you're sitting at the end of the quarter and thinking, did I have success or not? If you did not measure it, if you don't track it, I'm sorry, you cannot be able to measure it. So, what are your milestones? What are they from a time point of view, from a value point of view, cost point of view, everything? And then, how are you looking versus what it is that you put down? And then there are tools for those who are more in the technical elements. There are softwares, there are charts, depending on project managers, those who are exposed to this. Once when I've done project management, I've used like Gantt charts, and it felt like so much putting down so much for at the point in time. But when I was through my project, the planning phase usually takes a lot of time. But when you're within the project and everything is just happening at the same time and all elements are coming together, there is no greater thing than having these tools to equip you as you're running through that phase of execution. So I found Gantt charts very, very helpful. And I'm sure many other tools will be very helpful as someone is tracking their goals and trying to see, based on their project or outcome, how they're doing. Then, if you are a business and you're trying to work out a strategy and you're trying to adapt to change that's happening, what or how do you look at things? How do you segue your business? And I talk about this a lot because this is something I'm very familiar with in terms of adapting your business to change in the business. I mean, adapting to change in business and the market itself. Yeah. Same things mentioned. Do you know your competitor? Do you know what's happening around you? Do you know your market? Keep your ear on the ground. Be someone who is very curious and be able to flex. Adjusting continuously is what you must do as a business, and now more than ever everything is just changing overnight. What we knew 3 months ago is so different than what we know today, and so it's very important to continue to flex. I think one of the greatest thing as well is to create feedback loops. Sometimes you can go on and on and on, especially from employees, if you are a senior or if you are the employee also giving feedback. It works always. For those who are doing and for those who are steering this execution of the strategy, give each other feedback through and through so that you can know where you're going wrong, you can know what you're doing right. And what you're doing right, you continue doing it and do it even better. What you're doing wrong, then you see how to fix it and see how it doesn't sort of change the direction of your project. So it's so important for you to be able to adapt to what is happening and the fast changes that are coming in our market, to use feedback as a tool to get better and to adapt faster in the market. And then the other element is staying agile and responsive. So you've been given feedback, so you know that this thing is working or not working. And COVID is here. You're a networking company or a communications company like Zoom. How do you stay agile? How do you respond? strategy will be so key in this. It will allow you to edit at least something that you already had. I think I mentioned this, so that you can make it much better. It can help you to uh, sort of balance the short term. So if you are Zoom, there is a demand for your product now. Does your technology even avail for you, or make it possible for you to provide your product, or you're gonna throw it out there and then there'll be, it wasn't working, it cannot support the bandwidth, it cannot, many things that would come against it. But then what do you do in the short term? Maybe do you give that ability of 30-minute, 45-minute calls, which drop off, but still it allows for you to adapt to now giving unlimited calls? How do you change what it is that you used to do for the short term right now, so that you're very responsive, and then make it and plan it for the long term? And while you're doing this, of course, iteration. Listen to your clients, listen to your customers, listen to the feedback, listen to the market, listen to the people you're serving, listen to your employees as well. And if you're an employee, give feedback in the same way. And then, of course, keep monitoring. Like I said, keep tracking, keep monitoring, because you do not know and you cannot measure and you cannot know success of something if you're not monitoring or tracking it, so that you can make adjustments in real time as well. Okay, so before I jump us into a practical example, which is Zoom, which I've sort of mentioned a couple of times, that this is something that I did with my within my, let's call it, executive MBA studies, to just analyze a company from a framework point of view and look at its strategies and look at the tools that are there, and try and understand, if I was Zoom at that point in time, how would I have been thinking? But before we get there, I just want to pause for a moment and give us 2 or 3 seconds as I take a water break to just think through what I have just shared, and then we can move into this practical example. Okay, so we'll take go into Zoom, and I have here 2 tools, which is the Pastel and the Potters. And it may be a bit too small for us to see, but I will take us through. And I've analyzed Zoom, what could have been if they were having their 5 forces framework before COVID. How are they looking at things? How are they looking at suppliers, the power of suppliers, competition, new people, new entrants coming into that business? They had a business before, but it was not as big, of course, as we know it today. We didn't even know Zoom. I think most of us used from our company point of view, we used some big webinar sort of tools, and we didn't even have this personal interaction, right? Of using online calls a lot. We use them in the setup of organizations. So Zoom came in, and COVID came in. I think more fast COVID came in, and then it revolutionized how we work with communications and networking. So if we look at before COVID, if we are looking at the threat of new entrants during that time, it was still a communications, let's call it, the industry still was competitive, but it was very much a corporate and less an individual or personal market that was playing in this sector. Players were like Webex. I think if some of you are familiar, and none of us, at least personally, did not have a Webex. The organization had Webex, and we do calls through Webex, yeah. And most of the companies had these accounts, and this is what was there. So new companies coming in were there, but they could not be able to beat the giants that were existing. They would come in, and for the little that they can do, the market they can get, they were able, maybe for very small stroke mid-sized companies. And there was not much visible demand at the time. So there was a high threat of new entrants, but then as well, it was being neutralized based on the sector that it was in, because this sector as well needs a lot of investment, capital investment, to be able to dish out such ability of such networks into for people to use. Then if we'll go clockwise. The bargaining power at the point in time of buyers. You as a buyer, at the moment, if I had a very low bargaining power, and even if I was a corporate, I had a very low bargaining power, because there were very few alternatives. The giants were there, they ran the market and they owned the market. So it was very limited. So you either go in, you take A or B, and the choices being limited in that sense. Now, going again to the substitutes, what else could you use? It was a very low, let's call it rendition of what options do you have? You have Cisco, you have WebEx. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 5 is even a lot at the point in time. And then on video conferencing and such tools, right? It was a very niche thing. And even a lot of us, Teams wasn't there at the point in time, of course, and many things. We used emails a lot and we used phone calls. And for development, for companies who are really big, yes, we used WebEx to be able to do video conferencing and communicating. But the threats from any substitute, if I was in this industry at that point in time before COVID, was very small. Bargaining power of suppliers, they were the ones. They were the giants. They owned it. They said it. They called the shots. They had a very high. So if you are, depending on which side you're sitting, if you're the one who is Zoom, at the point in time, Zoom is a nobody. So if you're WebEx, you are owning the market, right? You're the one having the most clients, because not many companies have that ability to come in and reach. Zoom, you do not have yet the skill. No one really knows you. Very small infrastructure, and therefore, because of that, you remain small in that sense. So it would have been a growth, but a very, very slow growth in that element. And then, from a competitive point of view, coming into the center, you could call it moderate, because like I said, even if you're offering, the big players are there. They've mastered video conferencing. They have big contracts with the big companies, and so you're coming to find maybe the niche, the small companies who have even come to understand and appreciate what is video conferencing. The world, of course, has become very interconnected, so it's much easier as well at the point in time to adapt these tools, but still very moderate to, if you're looking at the pie of video conferencing, this was a very small threat or a moderate threat for the existing market. Then we go to post-COVID, and we start again clockwise from the top. How was the threat of new entrants? So COVID has happened. We all need video conferencing and affordable. Our homes, now we've moved, even the demand has moved even less from corporate. Yes, corporate needs it, but even from our point of view, from a personal point of view, everyone is going to be talking to everyone through this new mode, and we're not seeing each other. Physical meetings have all been taken away. And so new entrants coming in, if I am Zoom, it's moderate in this point in time, because if you think about it, you need a lot of infrastructure just in 2020 to say, in 6 months, I'm going to create my own Zoom company. So it still remains a very moderate rate. If you're already in there, then you are doing a good job. You actually, now you have a very big chance to pivot, which is what Zoom did. Then bargaining power of the buyers, who is us, the consumers, it's now elevated. We now have these options of the small Zooms who are there, all this video conferencing, Google Meet, everyone who's come up. I have supply, I have choices. I now can be able to even afford it from a cost, from a cost point of view, it came down to a level that, a consumer, an individual can afford. So switching is very low. Today I can use Zoom. Today we are using, this tool. In an hour, I could be in a meeting in Zoom. So I have no loyalty, and switching is very easy. So I have a lot of power now compared to when it was before COVID, just because the interconnectivity has become one with us, and it's become much easier from when COVID happened. Then the threat of substitutes, I would call it as moderate. So if you look at substitutes, if you're calling out, will do in-person meetings threaten now video conferencing as we know it? Not necessarily. People are still meeting in person. Some of us are still doing, and post-COVID, actually now we're doing hybrid kind of working. So we are at home where we need these tools, and we're in the office half the time. So, and we see the world today that it will never revert to its old state where 99% of us used to go to the office, and in-person meetings were the most applicable way of doing meetings. Now, video conferencing and many other ways are the norm. Working from home is the norm. It's acceptable. And so to substitute and to say that I will not be using video conferencing anymore is a very small threat or a very moderate threat to these organizations. And then suppliers. what's their bargaining power? Still remains high because Zoom became a very dominant player post COVID. Of course, they were able to do the right thing. They were there at the right time. Everything just worked out for them, and they were able to really flex, which is one of the things that we've talked, to sort of adapt to this market that and the demand that was coming at them and to them. And so, with all the hardware they put down, with all the investment they put at that point in time, and the given that they are also a software company, everything that they invested, they did the right things at the right time. And so they have a very high bargaining power, but of course it continues to diminish as we go, and with many options that are coming up in the market. From a competition point of view, now everyone wanted to do this. Everyone was like, this is the next big thing. Maybe it's a matter of time, but everyone wanted to do it. And now many years later, we see that there are more tools that we can name. They are tools everywhere. When you've given them the opportunity to take time to invest, Google came in, Microsoft Teams came in, everyone, bundle plans. If you have Microsoft, you have this, and this, and then you have Teams for free. Like it just became an exploded industry because of this situation. So if I am Zoom and I am analyzing my business before COVID, after COVID, and I'm using Potter's five forces, this is how I'd look at my business and looking at the opportunities and looking at, other than opportunities, what are the things I need to do to secure my market share going into the future? With all these companies coming in, with what are they offering? What am I doing different? How will I change my business model? Will I just continue staying on video conferencing, or will I do something different, which is what you see Zoom doing? They have innovated, and they're just not a video conferencing company anymore. So are you going to be like Microsoft, and I'm going to give you a bundle? If I give you this, you pay for Microsoft, you're paying for the suite, then you're also getting Teams for free. They call it for free, but of course there's a way you're paying. So how do you now innovate and see that competition is locked out and there's something that you have different? So this really helps you plan your strategy and see how you're going to react and how you're going to behave depending on how the situation changes in the market. So that covers Potter's five forces. And the last one would be the pastel. And this one analyzes, of course, same virtual communication industry, sitting at the point in time and analyzing how the communication industry changed with COVID and with everything happened. Politically, what was happening at the point in time? It's COVID, borders are being closed, you cannot move from A to B. If you have any ties, depending on whether you're in the communication industry, we know there was a lot of scrutiny and a lot of conversations with China at the point. So what kind of company are you? How have you set yourself up? And how does it appear from a political scene and a global scene at the point in time? If you are Zoom, for example, how are you relating with them? How are you relating with China, if at all? How does that even come to play? How's your market going to be? Are you going to launch everywhere other than what, all those things need to be considered. From an economic point of view, costs completely just halved. And cost also, they became much lower because the population of who has adapted this technology and the people who need it, economies of scale. In the same way, it was able to pay out. So, and in some cases, because it needed to happen, you'd have governments that were supporting home learning or education, where the government's involved, so that they could actually inject economically a situation where it becomes easier. If let's say you are an application that was an education application at the point in time, and luckily home learning started because children could not go to school, and you probably are that application that the government decided to pick to be able to dish out education to the masses, then how did that work for you? How were you ready? What were the economics around you? Because it could play that the government actually subsidized a lot of the cost of you setting up that application so that it can be used for driving that and being setting up and going live soon as possible, so that children's school is disrupted for as short a time as possible. And then from a social element, moving from face to face, what we all knew, to online, that being the new norm and being forced to make that to be the new norm. Pre-COVID, we know that would have been like, it never happened. Something huge like this needed to change how we see the world and how we relate and how we communicate. Having conversations and calls like this, it's much more common now than it was before. The adaptation of it is just part of us, yeah. And what is your industry and how is it impacting that social element. Now, people are sitting there, couch potatoes. We are not moving from our desks. Actually, we found that even post COVID, we were working even more. So, with this sort of solutions that you're giving as a business, how are you impacting the social element of the society that you're operating in? Mental health concerns or some of the things that we're looking at around working virtually. You're just looking at a screen, you're not even interacting with people face to face, or if you were living alone during that time, it was just very difficult. So you are in this communication industry. How do you play out, with this? Looking at social, you are on the phone industry. You are in the if you are TikTok, for example, how is that impacting your clientele, and the impact that it has on the people that are going to be consuming your product, and what are you going to do, or how could that come and ricochet and hit you back, right? Looking at what's happening with TikTok, for example, technological from that element. um, what did you already have the R&D and you were just waiting to sort of explode it, or were you on the way to saying that, oh, I need to be able to figure out the technology that will allow for video conferencing, that will allow for, from a technology point of view, then where are you if you're mapping your strategy, and how are you looking from the environment? What's the impact of what you're doing around? Environment has become a very, very key conversation, starter, finisher, anything in the middle, right? Because it's all about, if we do the things we do the way we are doing, then we'll not have much, or our children, or our children's children will not have much to be left with. And that's becoming more core and core, to ensure that we are bringing in solutions that are environmentally attuned, that are sensitive to the environment. Our children are even learning way more about the environment, and they are actually picking up those things. And this is where you see you've been an organization doing very good, but because maybe the generation that you served at the point in time did not very much worry, there is an organization, or there is a group of Gen Zs or other Gen As that are coming, who are very, very keen on what they will pick and what they will not pick. And your company could just go flat overnight based on boycotts from this very, I would call them work generations in that way, very informed. So pre-COVID, post-COVID, what's happening with your business? How are you playing? How conscious are you to the environment, with everything and the solutions that you're bringing in if you're in the communication industry? And then, of course, everything that you're doing needs to be also looked at from a legal point of view. If it is not acceptable, if it is not within the bounds of legal bounds of that country, especially, or where you are, then what constraints do you have, and how are you going to go around about them in a legal way to ensure that you're still, doing ethical business at the end of the day? Yeah. So that marks the end of our views, our case studies, and our application of some strategic tools that maybe could be helpful, and how to think about them in case you are interested in trying to see how to bring strategy to life around your life or your business situation. And yeah, to conclude, I think everything said, it's strategy is a fancy word for a plan, for a map, for a way to get there. And it is so important to understand the tools that come with it, so that it can be very intentional. It's something that is long term and less tactical and less now. As much as, yes, execution can be broken down and should be broken down into pieces that are able to chunks that you're able to sort of execute much better and be able to track much better. Working on goals and making sure that they are smart goals is also very crucial. So I'm hoping that some of these things we've talked about will help you to drive your business, or look at your business in a different way, stay ahead of competition, or continue doing, if you're doing great, continue doing what you're doing. If you didn't have a strategy and you're doing great, I think you can even, do much better, therefore, if you apply a strategy and you're intentional about your business. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, wow,
So
Grace.
over to you. Yes.
Sorry for cutting you short there while you were speaking. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, because today's session was nothing short of inspiring, very, very informative, very, very detailed. Thank you so much for the invaluable insights that you have shared. I think your lived experience and even your sorry, the work that went into your MBA has built into this conversation. So thank you so much. And I believe it has resonated with all of us and it's going to leave a lasting impact also. And the fact that we can always come back to the recording to refer to what it is that you are saying, to refer to how things started happening, to refer to the tools there, the tools there, the framework that is there, and even with the live examples, we can draw parallels with. Oh, okay. I think maybe I may have lost
I lost
Grace, or
you for
Grace has
just
lost
a little.
me.
Yes, just the last sentence.
Oh, I was saying I like how you gave the example of Zoom at the end with Potter's five, what did you call them? Potter's five
Quarter five, yes, yes,
licenses?
five framework. The five, quarters
I've
five.
learned that from you.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have
Yes,
learned that from you.
the five
And I
frameworks,
like
yes, of Porter's
mm,
model.
I like the fact that you've given the Zoom example. So for someone like me who is encountering it now for the first time, or anyone else who is encountering it for the first time, I'm trying to draw parallels, to copy paste it into my current scenario. Then I have a very, very nice guideline on how to do it. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Let me just take the presentation off screen so we can have this conversation mid screen. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome, and thank you for giving the opportunity. I hope we learned one or two things, and we'll see how we can apply them.
Mhm.
Yes, it's daunting, but it's the journey of 1,000 miles. That is one step. So yes, and
True,
I'd be
very
very
true.
happy to help somebody who's thinking about something towards this on how they can. Yeah, I'm very
Mhm.
much available.
Thank you so much for sharing that you're available for anyone who would want to reach out to you for guidance and more guidance on mastering strategic thinking. I see we are well past time, so with that sensitivity in mind, I'm going to ask you just one question. Give us
Mm-hmm.
a book recommendation. It's actually not a question; it's a request. Give us a one book that, let me not limit you. Give us book recommendations for the books that have been very, very impactful for you over the last few.
I will. I think in the last 6 months, let me say, a lot of books have come my way, and there's this book called Power. Actually, it's just called Power. I will get the author's name and share it with you on online. And that book,
Mm,
I think what it resonated for me is the strategy of how to acquire power. That there is nothing wrong with power.
mhm,
What is wrong with
mm,
power is how we use it, and sometimes how we try and acquire it. But there's nothing wrong with wanting power, because especially I'll talk about myself as a woman. We think that it's a bad thing. Like how it can only be a politician wants power, it gets into his head. No, from a corporate point of view, it is important to command a certain type and a certain amount of power in your
true.
organization, depending on the conversations you're having, the influence you're putting, how your career is being discussed, what it is that you're doing. So I think that book has given me the it has unleashed a different me, and that's one of the best books that I've read in the last, let's call it, 6 months, in this journey. Yes.
Alrighty. I'll follow up with you for the author name, or we will Google it so we can start put it on our book reading
Yes,
list for the
yes. I'm, I'm,
balance of
I'm
the
very
year.
poor on names, but yes. Yes,
I will look
we'll do
for it
that.
and
Let's do
confirm
that.
if it's the one. Then I post on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Awesome.
Alrighty. That's it, Grace. I know it's 8:20, almost 9 p.m. where you are. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll say thank you. Thank you so much for giving us 1.5 hour of your time this evening. Be blessed. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. All right.
From me
Have a
and the
nice
audience,
evening
those are
and
catching
to
me now.
everyone.
Have
Bye.
a fantastic evening. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.